Hey, so right before E3 and this whole crazy summer season kicks off, I just wanted to kind of swoop in and do one more kind of E3 talk video because they're fun. And I've also been trying to do some Q&A, so expect me to do these every so often. I'm excited. So what I did is on the community tab on YouTube, which I'm trying to use more, I put out a call for questions for you guys, kind of centered around E3, sort of not really. So you guys sent me a lot. Thank you very much. I have a lot to talk about, so let's just jump in. The first question, and just keep in mind, I apologize in advance if I mispronounce anyone's names. I'm going to try my best, but our first question is from Stefan Boxy, who asks, is Square Enix done with Tomb Raider, or do we get some sort of announcement? I think this year we do not get an announcement, specifically because Square Enix just did an event a couple months ago celebrating Tomb Raider's anniversary, and there wasn't really too much from it unless you're like a die-hard Tomb Raider fan. So I don't expect them to really show us anything this year because I feel like they would have given us some cool clue there. That being said, they are still working on Tomb Raider things, and I don't think Square Enix is by any means done with Tomb Raider at all. I think that's a property that they can keep alive forever. It may be on the back burner for a little bit, but I'd say it's not on the back burner like how Square Enix has Deus Ex on the back burner, where it's like, I think it's just kind of like, okay, like, Let's wait a second. Ooh, here's a spicy one. Death by Sexy. He asks, how often, if ever, do you get legit inside information on upcoming or unannounced games in the making? I would say in the past, I said it in another video this year, I don't have any scoops. I don't know anything. I think it's because the pandemic, I haven't really went out and talked to people physically. Usually, I'd say before an E3, I'd say about 20%. I know what's going on. And usually it's just through hearing it from other people, not even through like embargoes or NDAs or anything like that, but just kind of hearing through the grapevine types of things. I'd say every year from 10 to 20%. I also don't want to know everything because I like to be surprised. I think it's better to get the raw reaction, not really like the behind the scenes reaction. I'm in this not for like seriousness or anything. I'm in this because I love this stuff, so I don't want to know everything. You know what I mean? I have found it interesting though, like a lot more YouTubers now are prominent and getting traction because they have insiders and sources and stuff like that, where it's been kind of an opposite for me. Without me being able to go to events in person like E3 or anything and physically speak to people, my sources are gone. So I don't know where these people are getting sources, but yeah. Interesting. Trevor Highgate asks, what are the chances we see a Simpsons Hit and Run remake announcement at E3? I know it's 0%, but please give me hope. Dude, can you imagine if they actually did that? I would love that. Okay, the Simpsons Hit and Run was incredible. It hit at a time, too, where, like, The Simpsons was still really great. I don't watch The Simpsons anymore. I know people who still stick with it for so many years, I think my entire life. But man, that was just a great game. There's some really great stuff out there detailing like the making of it and stuff. I definitely recommend looking that up because it's a good story. But could you imagine? I don't think it would be like a big stage presentation like, guess what, guys, we're remaking The Simpsons. I don't think that would happen. I think it would be something weirder, like THQ Nordic would pick up The Simpsons Hit and Run and republish it, something like that, but who knows. Ooh, here we go. So Deej asks, do you think Halo is going to look better than it did when they first showed it off last year? Graphically, I didn't feel like Halo looked next gen, while things like Returnal and Ratchet and Clank really take advantage of the hardware. Not to be super console war-y or anything. Shout out to Deej. He's actually one of a couple of people who asked Halo Infinite questions in terms of like, can people actually be pleased? Can they turn these things around? That's what I'm looking forward to seeing. Honestly, I think that Microsoft is going to try really hard and be like, no, man, here's why you need to get excited for Halo Infinite. And I think they need to do a lot more other than the graphics. Like, unpopular opinion, okay, if it doesn't look that great, whatever. My thing watching that gameplay reveal was like, what is this? Like, why? It just felt like more Halo, which isn't bad, but it just felt it didn't really feel like it had a lot of inspiration or oomph behind it. So I want them to sell me on that. Hammer home with that. Surprise us with a new loop, some crazy new flow. Just demonstrate it in a way that blows us away from a gameplay perspective, because they can't completely rebuild the graphics from the ground floor, but they can convince us why they really made this game in the first place, other than money. I mean, the fact that maybe they had a good gameplay idea. Sticking with Xbox, Christian asks, do you think we will see any Fable gameplay? And if so, what would you like to see? Well, I would love to see Fable gameplay. I don't know what I want. As someone, I love Fable so much. I love Fable 1 and 2. The original Fable is one of my favorite games of all time. I sound like a broken record by now, but I don't know what I want other than like just kind of a slightly modern version of the same thing. A third person, somewhat linear, but like high quality, compacted single player RPG. I don't necessarily need Fable to have a giant, incredible, massive world, which honestly they're probably going to do. But I like a focus on like tight art direction, crazy world design, atmosphere, and mood. That's the biggest thing I really want this Fable to have. It needs to have that charming, quirky British vibe, tone. It has to have that Lionhead spice that the original 3 games had. I think that's going to be very hard to replicate. It's super charming. It's super specific. It's clearly from a team that knows what they're doing. It's a different studio now. I'm thankful that it is still a British studio, so I think that's good. But that's really what I want. Can it replicate that charm, that feel, and not go overboard in terms of big AAA, overstuffed open world RPG thing? Ayush asks, Insomniac Spider-Man 2, please. I know Ratchet & Clank is just around the corner, but dude, you need to talk about Spider-Man 2. Oh, yeah, I think I'm so excited. I think it's a ways off, and I want them to absolutely take their time. But I think they have something here. I think they have the makings of some good shit, from the end of the Spider-Man game to the end of Spider-Man Miles Morales. I think they're building a really good, interesting Spider-Man little game universe here. Not to mention the fact that, and I've said this before, but the fact that they are doing such a good job telling Spider-Man stories. Peter Parker's story in Spider-Man was one of the better Spider-Man stories I've experienced in a while, especially in terms of like movies and video games, by far. And then Miles Morales also did the same thing. It did its own thing a little bit, it tweaked some things, and it just told a really good story, a story that they wanted to tell, that really understood the characters and why we liked them in the first place. I think that's what Insomniac has on lock, and for them to just do it again, honestly, all I want to see is a tale that really kind of brings it all together. Like, we have a fully developed Miles now. We have a Spider-Man in this universe. How can they make it cool with the two of them interacting? As much as I think for the main story, I still want to see where Peter's story is going to go from here. You can't deny it. It's set up now that there's two dudes. There's a younger dude and an older dude, and I really want to see how that goes down story-wise and gameplay-wise. I think there's potential. Nathan Breen asks, do you see yourself doing anything else in the gaming industry other than YouTube? Honestly, no. I don't have a lot of talent. No, honestly, this is all I really came here for. I fell into this. It found me. It saved me. I love doing what I do every day for the most part. I don't really want to do anything else. And I think that's also good in terms of what I'm setting out to do right now. I'm never gunning for something else. There's nothing else in front of me other than talking more and having more fun and, earning a living. That's it. The only other thing I see myself doing in the game industry is working with more people, more collaboration. Right now, as much as like working at GameRanks during the day and stuff like that, like it's still pretty small, and a lot of us work remote, so it's still pretty like lonely. I would love to one day like be in a room with a bunch of people figuring stuff out. I don't really like want to make a video game or anything. At least I don't think. Anyway, I don't know. I'm just riffing. That's where I'm at. Honestly, if you ask me 2 weeks from now, I'd probably give you a different answer. Lawrence343 asks, when was your first E3 and how was it? Did you enjoy it, and was it as much as you hoped for? My first E3 was E3 2014. That's a long time. I know a lot of people who have been doing it way longer, but I still, like, every year is like, holy shit, I got to go. Holy shit, I got to go. So like it still feels like a battle every year. Obviously this year, not really. It was everything I hoped for. Every single thing, from reading about it as a kid in magazines, seeing the big building with the E3 on it, all that, going to attend all the press conference events, meeting some of my heroes. It was awesome. I was incredibly happy, and from then I was hooked. I went with no money. I went with enough money to feed myself on cereal all week. I got to LA. I had to room with like a bunch of other people, and I went to a Target down the block and bought myself like the couple of boxes of cereal to live off of, and that's what I did for a week. And it was worth it because I had a freaking blast. Media Pastimes asks, and I think this is one of my favorite questions, when you're not busy trying to keep up with the covering of all the big news coming out of the convention, do you have any E3 rituals? I have the house to myself during the week of E3 this year, going to order some incredible food, sit back, and enjoy the showcase events. You know how to live, dude. That used to be my thing. Before I started doing this, when I worked retail jobs in college and stuff like that, I made sure to take off for E3. I know a lot of other people, I've talked to a lot of you out there who also try and do that. It was always very hard to be like, when your bosses are like, why do you want off? Which is bullshit that you have to even explain. But anyway, and I'd always be like, well, I want to like hang out and like watch So worth it. There's nothing more exciting than knowing that, like, especially with G4 when it was on TV and stuff like that, just kicking back for a couple of days and just letting all this shit play out in front of you. It's so satisfying. And I know people are cynical about E3, but there's something about just kind of absorbing video game information, whether a lot of it is curated by the big corporations and its marketing. Whatever. I think there's still some fun to be had. So that was really all I did. Was I would always ask for that chunk off, and I would do nothing but that and hang out and eat garbage food. Honestly, things haven't really changed, but yeah. Michael Odendahl says, what do you personally want out of the upcoming Indiana Jones game? Lots of love from South Africa. Cheers to you in South Africa. Whoo boy, Indiana Jones, what I want. And like, here we go. Just a good old fashioned video game fun time, a single player linear adventure that really captures and replicates the feel of Indiana Jones, the sense of adventure, the idea of getting by the skin of your teeth. Also the fact that Indiana Jones is really good at kind of getting his ass beat and like stumbling around and winning. He's good for a famous punch, but he's scrappy. So make the gameplay feel scrappy and not like you're this powerhouse awesome guy. That's going to be very hard to do. That's going to be very challenging. But just give me an Indiana Jones adventure. There was a great one for Wii. There was a pretty great one for Xbox. And then, of course, the old stuff, Fate of Atlantis. Like, I mean, come on. I gotta say, this is where I like video games because I would so much rather see a video game version of young Harrison Ford, Indy, than them do some sort of CGI young Harrison Ford indie in a movie. Eric Gurley asks, is there a game franchise that keeps pulling you back yet keeps disappointing you? For me, it's the Far Cry series. Ooh, this new one looks like it might be decent, and then I play it, why do I keep falling for their tricks? It reminds me of the Lewis Black candy corn bit. That's a good reference. You took my answer. Far Cry. I always keep getting suckered back in because Far Cry 3 was one of my favorite games ever. So I'm continually chasing that high. And none of them have really hit the heights for me. I got really, really hyped for 5. And 5 was all right. That's the problem. I think they're all like, all right, cool, pretty good. But none of them blow me away like 3. And here we are with Far Cry 6. And I can't help it. I'm looking at it and I'm like, there's some pretty cool shit here I really want to experience. But then I'm like, am I just going to be like, man, I play it and then forget about it because it's just another Far Cry? We shall see. Thankfully, that game's got a release date, so who knows? CashCav asks, if you were in control and creating the next big video game, what would the main story be about? That's tough. Anxiety. But cool. Like, like not like anxiety, like mental health stuff, like how an indie game would handle it, with class and, a scholarly approach. I'd rather just a game that like gives you that feeling. I like the feeling that survival horror games give you, that some challenging games give you, that some claustrophobic games give you. So I would love to have that from a gameplay perspective combined with the story. But then I also my problem is I like everything. I would also really like, I really like skateboards in games. I really like guns in games. I really like sci-fi. That's why I can never make a video game. Danny Lamb 1200 says, I guess this is for his E3 hopes. He says, a new Back to the Future game, not Telltale, or a DeLorean in more racing games. Dude, you're talking my language. You might be pandering to me, but I finally get to talk about DeLoreans in videos. My dream car. I love it so much. One day I will have one. Mark my words. I really love the car more than I like Back to the Future, which is blasphemous, but I just like 80s things. I really love the car, despite its issues. And it does need to show up in more games. It needs to be in more Forza games specifically. It was most recently added into the Crew 2. No one really cares about what I'm talking about right now. I'm sorry. But yeah, I would love to see a new Back to the Future game. The Telltale one, boy, I don't know. It was early Telltale. I very much think that they should do a Back to the Future game before they ever do another Back to the Future movie. That's for sure. But that's just me. Obsolete asks, if Ubisoft announced Splinter Cell, do you really think they'd do it justice or unfortunately be the last nail in the coffin? I am very positive. I really am. I love video games. I do this channel because I love talking about what I love. But I don't think that a new Splinter Cell could really reach the heights or the expectation in my brain. The brand is so far flung from what it ever was. I do think that the main reason why we haven't seen another one is because Ubisoft can't completely apply their formula to it, or they just haven't figured out exactly how to yet. I don't want a big, crazy, open world Splinter Cell game. That being said, interesting conversation on GameSpot video they did today, where Timur Hussein, shout out to him, friend of the show, said that, hey, you know, Metal Gear Solid 5's open world stuff worked out really well. So yeah, I'm willing to be convinced. I think the problem is just that it's Ubisoft's open world approach, not, you know, a creative, visionary Hideo Kojima type approach to open world. I will say though, honestly, I will take like a nail in the coffin, a last game that's not that great, just because I'm not as satisfied with like Michael Ironside's last Sam Fisher performances being Ghost Recon additional content, you know? That's all I really want. And Mike Skirma asks, what game reveal would catch you completely off guard at E3? For me, it would be a Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 remake. I can dream, okay? You don't have to dream, because I think that could be a thing eventually. And that's what I want to see. Tony Hawk is one of my favorite franchises. The 1 and 2 remake is excellent. It's everything I could have hoped for as a hardcore fan. Do more of that, guys. Do it with 3. Do it with 4. They should do Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, like how they did, right? Now they should announce Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4. Come on, man. That's about all we have time for today. One other thing I would love to see, Sega come out and announce a new Crazy Taxi. Anyway, I'll leave you with that. Let me know what you guys think about E3, or if you hate any responses to my questions. We will definitely do more not E3 related Q&As down the line, so keep your eyes peeled for the community tab and stuff like that. But thanks for just hanging out, listening to me ramble, talk about stuff I love. Definitely appreciate you being here. If you liked this video and had a good time, clicking the like buttons, all you got to do, helps me out. Would really appreciate that. But hey, I'll see you guys in more videos throughout all of this E3 chaos throughout June. Thanks for watching. I'm Jake Baldino. Subscribe because video games and pizza's on me.